Okay, we're ready to go.
All right.
Okay. Welcome back to another book discussion with James Beard. For this edition of our monthly discussion, we'll be covering Japanese wrestling. First, James, thank you for coming back with me.
Well, you're welcome. Glad to be here.
Cool. So I guess the best way to kick it off is how long were you making trips over to Japan, and are you still making the long trip?
Over a period of about 7 years. Yes. Then I worked for 3 different companies. I started out with Super World Sports, who is a new company fronted by Kenshiro Tenryu, and I worked for NOW, which was ran by Kendo Nagasaki or Kazuo Sakurada, and then I worked for Big Japan for a while.
Mm-hmm. Do you still make the trip over to Japan, or?
No, I haven't been over there in several years now. I was going over there regularly for a long time, and then in the mid to late 90s, the economy over there started kind of failing, like we've had here, and the business fell off a lot. So the work kind of dried up a little bit. But I went over there for quite a few years on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. Could you maybe explain to people who aren't aware, what is the difference between a touring company and a non-touring company?
A touring company and a non-touring? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
All the companies I worked for over there were touring companies. I mean, you would go over there and generally the tour would last 2 weeks. Sometimes it lasts a little bit more. And for a long time, I would go over and do a tour and stay over and work in the training center for a while, and then wait till the next tour came over and do that tour, and then come home and then go back and do that process again. So there'd be times when I'd be over there 6 or 8 weeks at a time. But most of the major companies over there are touring companies. They go out and do anywhere from a week to 2 weeks at a run. And back in those days, they would generally bring over some foreign wrestlers, what they call gaijin, and they would compete against those guys. But it's been so long since I've been over there, I'm not sure exactly how all of them are working right now. But all of them over there were touring. They were going all over the place, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, that actually answers my next question, which was if every company out there in Japan had a touring schedule.
Well, as far as I know, I'm sure there may have been some smaller companies that didn't, and maybe work more locally or that kind of thing. I worked everywhere. I went up from one end of Japan to the other, and a few times even went out of to China and Korea and those places too. So we were always on the road. If we would work in Tokyo, we usually do some kind of TV shot or filming in Tokyo at Curtain Hall, but most of the other shots were out of town somewhere in one of the other major cities.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you ever work for Inoki or Baba, or just the smaller guys?
No. I worked for the biggest one was SWS, and SWS was affiliated with WWF at the time. So we had regular tours with WWF wrestlers back in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm. Is it fair to say that a certain talent gets over in Japan that couldn't get over here?
What's different? I mean, in the United States, especially back in those days, there were certain guys that they got over here on their walking and talking and their personality and the gimmick and that sort of thing. And in Japan, you had to pretty much be able to fight had to be over there, had to compete. So it was a different thing. Some guys could do both, but there were characters over here that just didn't get over in Japan because they weren't taken seriously. And probably vice versa. Some of the Japanese guys come over here and not have the kind of personality it took to get over here. So it was a little bit going both directions.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that has to do with the perception of wrestling in over in Japan?
Absolutely, yeah. They at least when I was going there regularly, they treated it like another sport, like any major sport. They covered it that way in the papers and the magazines, and fans treated it that way. It's not that the fans weren't smart fans; they just they didn't care. They appreciated hard work and competition, and anything less than that wasn't accepted. So. It's the whole matter of how it was perceived and how it was treated and covered and all of that. There's just a different feel over there.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's fair to say that if that American wrestling fans don't know very much about Japanese wrestling history?
Probably, yeah. I mean, you've got a certain segment of American fans that are really into Japanese wrestling. And you see that today, even with the popularity of New Japan, with a certain segment of people. But most of them don't understand the whole history of it and how it started and what the differences are over there and that sort of thing. It's of course, it all started with Rikidozan back years and years ago. And the truth is, Rikidozan was actually a Korean. But he got over in Japan and brought the American style over there, but they morphed it into what they call a stronger style, and took it very seriously. And some of the better American wrestlers, some of the top guys that had the kind of aptitude that they could go in and compete, go over there, and that's what established that Japanese market. And then, of course, the Inoki and Baba split into two different companies, and they had both had a little bit different philosophies, but most people don't understand the differences. The strong style from New Japan and what they call the King's Road with Baba, which is more Americanized, but both of them were very competitive-minded, both of them very hard-hitting type of styles.
Mm-hmm.
Baba's style just had a little bit more of storylines and angles and that sort of thing. The strong style was more just about getting in there and fighting.
Mm-hmm. So you'd say Old Japan was more Americanized?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And they use a lot more American. I mean, both of them use American wrestlers, the foreign wrestlers. But the way it was presented in Baba's company was a little bit more Americanized than it was with New Japan.
Mm-hmm. What do you think has changed, with the perception of Japanese wrestling to make more fans pay attention to it?
Well, I mean, I think the segment of fans that are really into Japanese wrestling has always been the one that appreciated the competition part of it. And I think what's happened is, with even that's changed today. Over there, the New Japan has gotten over really big with a certain segment here in the United States. That segment of fans really likes all the spots and things that they do in New Japan now. It's not really the pure strong style that it used to be. It's a lot more cruiserweight type things that's going on. That's kind of the direction they're going in right now, which is kind of different from the traditional strong style.
What if anything should people remember for a legacy left behind by the original owners of Japan, like Baba, Inoki, Tenryu, and Misawa?
Well, I mean, first of all of those guys were traditionally trained. I mean, Tenryu and like a lot of young Japanese wrestlers, he was trained over there, and then he was sent over here to learn the American style, and then they brought back over there, and they kind of morphed into what they were. They took what they learned here and combined that with the Japanese style, and they came up with what they came up with. And all of those guys were, first and foremost, they took the business very seriously. They took themselves seriously. It was all about the competition part of it. And, no matter which side of the fence they were on, whether it was Baba or Inoki. I think that's what separates the Japanese style that I kind of loved, and a lot of fans loved back in those days from the American style, because sometimes in America you find certain promotions that just they're more gimmicky and more I don't know, not spots so much because it doesn't mean spots, but it was just more of a character-driven type thing, and over there it was all about fighting, competition, and all those guys represented that. So they all came from the same kind of mold, really. They had their different personalities, but they all had that belief that they had to protect the business and treat it that way.
Mm-hmm. Since we're on the subject, did you ever work for Masala in his company, or?
No, I didn't work for Masala. No.
Mm-hmm.
No. SWS, when it started out, it was the original concept was to be a strong style company,
mm-hmm.
and they affiliated with Grand Armada and the guys that were actually the beginnings of MMA. There were some of those guys working with us, and we also had some affiliation with AAA in Mexico, and so it was a very the concept originally for SWS was for it to be a very serious competition type style, and of course that changed a little bit when they finally made the agreement with Vince McMahon and WWF. And started sending those guys over here, so it sort of got off track with that. But my background over there in Japan was working with those kinds of guys, and it was the best time of my life as far as wrestling goes.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you don't mind, I would like to do some word association. I'll say a name, and you say a story or what you, where they stand in Japanese wrestling or whatever comes to mind, or,
I'll try.
Well, I'll go with a question that I had before that I didn't ask. I'll start with this Atsui Onita.
I worked with Onita some. Onita was a very talented, skilled wrestler, and very over. And of course, he got involved in doing the more extreme stuff later on, and that's what he's known for, I guess, more than anything else. But Onita was a heck of a hand. He was a heck of a worker. I enjoyed working with him. Had a good time with him. And probably a little underrated, underappreciated because of the style he got into a little later on, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Onita, what was it like working in Big Japan?
Oh, it was fun. I mean, I can't. Every place I've worked in Japan is, I prefer over just about anything I've ever done here, other than maybe Texas. But and there are a lot of similarities actually in the Texas.
Oh yeah.
Style.
Mm-hmm.
And so any time I went to Japan was a pleasure for me. It's like Bob Orton used to say, "We're back in paradise." That's kind of how I felt over there.
Yeah. Bill Eadie.
Excuse me?
Bill Eadie.
Bill Eadie?
Yeah.
Well, of course, he's not Japanese. I love Bill Eadie. Bill Eadie was, I worked with him, and he was a booker when Global first started out.
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked with him many times. I just really have a ton of respect for him. Smart guy, one of the best big men I've ever been in the ring with. He's in that category with Terry Gordy and Brody and Henson and those kinds of guys. He's that level of talent.
Mm-hmm. Well, I only bring up his name because I saw a shoot interview with him and Barry Darsow, and they spoke about when they left Vince, and Bill said that he went into his closet and got the Max Superstar mask, and then he headed for Japan. Why, do gimmicks like that have a longer shelf life, or was it just because he wasn't over there consistently?
You're talking about why I was so over there? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, I mean, anybody who wears a mask has the possibility of having a longer shelf life because, obviously under a mask you don't age. There's so many things that are hidden there, and that helps a little bit. And, the Destroyer was one of the biggest stars who ever went to Japan. He's still kind of like a god over there. And there was I think there's something with the Japanese fan that really kind of got off to the masked wrestler, the character, that kind of thing. It's part of their culture kind of fit with that, and I think that may be kind of why you see guys like Kabuki and Kendo Nagasaki and those guys with the face paint, they got over too, because it's kind of related in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just one of those things that culture really got off to. And, of course, and then if you can produce when you put the mask on, you still have to produce. And guys like Bill Eadie or the Destroyer, they could do that. And that they were over because of the way they work.
Mm-hmm. The Ultimo Dragon.
I'm sorry?
Ultimo Dragon.
I'm not hearing you well for some reason.
Ultimo Dragon?
Ultimo Dragon? Oh, yeah. Yeah, Sai. Yeah, worked with him over there. Great guy, super guy. Of course, he got a lot of his training and experience working in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that in his work, a lot of the lucha style and all. And he was a blast to work with. I mean, he was in the lines of Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit and Tiger Mask and Liger, those kind of guys. He's same kind of talent and really, really good guy too. I occasionally still hear from him on Facebook, that kind of thing.
That's good to hear. To reference another interview I saw, Kevin Nash mentioned that when he was over in Japan, a part of the working agreement that WCW used to have with Japan, his Oz gimmick when he played Oz was over big time in Japan.
Well, it's another example of that character thing. If you're over there very much and you see their culture and the TV and the movies and those kinds of things, you see a lot of those kinds of cartoonish characters over there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just represented in comic books and all that kind of thing, and it's just a big deal over there. That's one of the things that they're into. So I'm sure that characters like that are probably get over a little bit more in that culture than they maybe have here, one reason or the other.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that? Well, I'll ask about the talent first. Vader.
Vader. He's an interesting story. He was my understanding was that Vader gimmick was supposed to have been given to Jim Helwig originally, and for whatever reason Helwig didn't show up or didn't make the tour or whatever. They gave it to Vader, and of course that started the legacy of Vader, the way and changed the way he worked. Really, I mean, he was basically just a big guy over here in the States where AWA Leon White, and somewhat successful, but not anything outstanding. And that really changed his whole way of working, the way he was perceived. That whole gimmick. And, it got over. I mean, he's another one of those character things that really hit with the Japanese fan. They loved all that, the big helmet and all that steam coming out of it and all that kind of stuff. And it's just one of those things that really got over, and then it translated over here too. Because he eventually got rid of all the helmet and everything, but he still worked that style. And, he was just a big, tough guy. I worked with him 3 or 4 months ago. I mean, he's still a big, tough guy. He's not quite the same Vader as he was, but he's just a very effective performer over here and over there too.
Dr. Death.
Great guy, super guy, good friend. He's one of those guys that fit very well in Japan because he's a legitimately tough guy and a legitimate wrestler. And the fans knew that. He didn't play around. There's certain guys, like Doc and Terry Gordy and Stan Hansen that actually were more successful in Japan than they were here because of their style and their personalities. They didn't have to put on any kind of airs or anything. They just go over there and fight, and Japanese appreciate that. So guys like Doc really got over there with that. He was his special talent, special guy. One of those guys you miss, when you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Great Sasuke.
Well, I'm really not that familiar, other than just watching. Just one of those legends over there, really. I wish I could tell you a little bit more about him, but I'm just not as familiar with him as some of the others.
Does that have to do with, does his success in Japan translate back to the fact that he wore a mask, or?
Probably some of it, yeah. I mean, over there, you had masked wrestlers over there, obviously, guys that were successful, like Liger and Tiger Mask and those guys, but, that adds to it sometimes. It just depends on how it's perceived, how it's worked. Those guys would have been good no matter whether they had a mask on or not. But, that added a little bit of flavor, I guess, to their personality, and that's part of it.
Mm-hmm. Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson.
I don't know those guys other than I've talked to Doc a couple of times, and I've watched them on video. Never gotten a chance to work with them. They're kind of the old traditional style guys that I enjoy and probably would enjoy working with. If they're taken care of and put in the right position, they'll make a big splash in WWE. They're the real deal.
I completely agree. Harry Smith.
Love Harry Smith. Worked with his dad, and he was quite a character, quite a guy to be on tour with. But I've worked with Harry also, and that's one thing I guess about being around a long time. You get to work with two different generations sometimes, and in some cases even three. Like with the Von Erichs, But Harry's a really good guy and a hard worker. A lot of people don't know that he's really into MMA type training and that sort of thing. He's a tough guy, really is. Much bigger than his father. I'm surprised that he didn't. I think he's kind of the victim of the same thing a lot of guys are when they come up early in WWE and really don't get put in the right position, have the right situations to get over, and they're not really ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, he's done really well in Japan now. He and Lance White have carried those belts for Noah and for New Japan both, and of course our NWA World titles too. And, that's a super team out there now.
Yeah. Do you think that Harry has the charisma his dad did, or? If you
talk to him, it's kind of weird because sometimes their personalities of the guys don't translate in public sometimes as well as they do in private. Their personalities in private aren't that different. I mean, Davey was a little bit more mischievous, I guess, but Harry's the same way. I mean, he's got a great sense of humor. He's funny. He's just. I think he's just never been put in a position where he can let that go. And, it's so controlled in WWE, especially for young guys. It's hard for a real personality to come forward, and maybe that was the problem with him. If you know him, he's a fun-loving, funny guy. And if he ever gets a chance to get that personality across, he'll probably do well. Maybe he doesn't want to. I mean, he's a big guy too, big tough guy.
Mm-hmm.
He and Ants don't fool around too much. They get in there and get after it. Kind of a different kind of worker than his dad was. So that's part of it too.
Mm.
But I can't say enough good things about Harry. I like him a lot. Good guy.
Okay, and the last person we'll hit is another person who, as to play to your point, much like Doc and Terry and Stan and Vader, had tremendous success in Japan. Bruiser Brody.
Well, I mean, what can you say? He's like a god over there. It's really sad that a guy like Brody couldn't have seen his career go full circle. I mean, he was he's a one of a kind athlete, one of a kind character, one of a kind person. It's really hard to say what he meant. Not just in Japan, but over here. I mean, he was one of our guys. It's just something like that, having senseless death like that. For somebody that has so much to give and all. And, if you're in Japan, and even to this day, if you mention Bruiser Brody, it's like, he's like a god over there in the wrestling. And it's because of what he was and what he presented. He never backed down. And some great matches. I mean, if you go back, people think about Brody as being this guy that goes in and kicks and punches, swings the chain, and all that kind of thing. But you go back and look at some of his matches. I mean, he did Hour Broadways with Ric Flair. He did some matches over there. I watched one the other day on YouTube with him and Terry Funk. It was just very competitive, just incredible. And he's just so underappreciated as a worker. I can't say enough about it.
As far as Brody goes, do you think that it really depended on the booker that he had, if the booker can control him, or not?
No, it's not. What about controlling him? It's about just dealing with him straight. If a booker made sense, if they asked him to do something that made sense, he could do it. He wasn't that difficult for him. It was the guys that tried to work him that ended up having a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he could be difficult if he got into one of those moods that he felt like he was being taken advantage of, or someone wasn't shooting straight with him and that kind of thing. Then you got a problem. But you know, a lot of the negative stuff about him, you know, not being cooperative and all that kind of thing, you know, that there's another story behind all that for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he was a guy who he wasn't afraid to get out and work the smaller promotions in the States and let people see him. And you know, he believed in that. He believed that was part of what he had to do to get over. And that was part of his freedom too. He didn't have to bow down to anybody as long as he was independent like that. You know, just I mean, well, there's been a trip about him, so it's, you know, obviously you talk about him forever, but he's such a special talent. It's a shame. It's a real shame.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned another person, Terry Funk.
Mm-hmm.
Do you was Terry a different wrestler over in Japan than he was in the States, or?
Everybody was different in Japan than they were in the States, just about.
Mm-hmm.
In the States, if you had a character or a certain style or something that may have been a little less than straightforward competition, you'd get away with it. Over there, you could do that. Now, Terry still was Terry. I mean, he did some crazy stuff. I mean, Terry had a style that was kind of like Dick Murdoch. I mean, there's a little humor in it somewhere if you look for it. But he was a hard-hitting, tough guy over there. And you know, later on, he got into the deal with the Noki's company and all, where he was doing a lot of the gimmick stuff and everything. But when he was working for Baba, he and Dory, they were taken very seriously. They were some of the top guys over there. And Terry was just a tough, hard-nosed Texas brawler when he got over there.
Mm-hmm. Well, now that's it for this video. If you liked the video, leave a like. Subscribe to the channel for more content just like this that you can only find right here at Wrestling Express. Thank you again, James Beard, for joining me.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
And we'll see you all next time.